And we are recording now.
About those
La 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 la. La 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 la. Welcome back, everyone, to
Two Shades of Grey.
And today your hosts are Claudio and
David.
Yes. How are you, David?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a storm out there.
It's a stormy day. We'll see how it will be to get to Calc.
Yeah. It's pretty cold. It's pretty slushy out there.
Yeah.
So
some freezing rain, some snow. Yeah.
And we're actually skipping our stats class right now, as usual. Because
yes. Not the
not
best.
necessarily the most
not the best
entertaining class.
Yeah. Anyways, so what's the topic of today, David?
So the topic of today is something that I guess we've been, or especially me, I'm kind of exploring, which is stuttering and speech impediments, and I guess just as a generalization, like personal issues like that.
Yeah.
And then how much of it is biological or neurological, and then how much of it is psychological. So basically, how much control do you really have over it?
Yeah.
And, I guess we're both a lot about like self-improvement.
Yes.
So
definitely.
this is definitely something that is like important to us. And
yeah.
Because we spent a lot of time like hanging out, we're pretty close. You told me like, look, I see a lot in you. Like I know that there must be a part of you where like you can kind of push through a lot of your issues with, having this like speech impediment. So
yes.
It definitely opened my mind. Like I didn't think about it in that way. It was always about like, okay, what I need to do is just accept it and then just work with what I have. But maybe there's an opportunity to like really push through it. And then, I don't know, and perhaps it won't ever go away. And I think it will never fully go away.
Maybe.
And I guess that's what we want to talk about. But perhaps there is a lot of control that I have that I never really realized.
Yeah. So to talk about like where we're starting off is that so you think that such speech impediments or other neurological I'm not sure how to call them, like how would you call these, like impediments or just or barriers or issues? Yeah. So you believe that those are more rooted within our brain?
Yes.
And instead, I believe that they're more a psychological factor, right? And so to start off, I've actually been reading a few books. One of them, I forgot his name. I'll link the author in the description, but it's about the plasticity of the brain. And it's so interesting. This neuroscientist, he's been working with many patients that have had ictuses, that have had Parkinson's, that have had autism, right? And he's been able, through various processes and just educational tutorials and stuff like that, to really change how their brain behaved and to make these people not so affected by what they had. And so by reading that book, I've just confirmed some more of my theories. That basically our brain and like the way that we behave is extremely influenced by how we think. And by having a, I guess, strong or good subconscious mind, then we can really influence and direct which way we want to take. Sure, some things will never be changed forever or fully, but we can definitely do a lot about that.
Okay. What were some of his methods, if you recall? How could he go about really like changing their brains, or just how they even perform in that way? Yeah.
So one of the main, one of his main theories is that to change a behavior that you have, you first have to unlearn it. Okay. Right. So for this one patient, she had autism since she was like 3 or something. What they did with her is that they created this program on the computer that enabled her to go back to like ground zero, kind of, so that she would have to like relearn how to do very basic things. And then from there, they would build her back up. So one of the main problems with autism is that people, they don't really value, I guess, like social interaction, and they're not able to...
I don't know if it's about like valuing. I would say they just, it's just different for them. Like they aren't really maybe capable of really like
Yes.
having those interactions. Like it's not necessarily like that they don't want to have it.
Yeah, it's not that they don't want to, just that they're not predisposed to them in a sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And so these computer exercises, they make these kids just like read more or write more or like listen to audio more, so that they're more aware of, you know, like other people talking to them, and then speaking more. And so slowly the brain can rebuild itself. And in fact, one of the biggest myths is that once you reach like 20 or 25, your brain stops growing and that's it, which is completely untrue, because there's, you know, a lot of people in their like in the older ages that start doing like brain games like Lumosity or Elevate, for example, and they're actually able to improve, which is actually something that I want my grandma to do, because she forgets everything all the time. But anyways,
I mean, there's a reason that crosswords are like recommended for
yes,
people,
of course,
and, like,
yeah,
they
yes.
really lend to
because you want to keep your frontal lobe active,
yeah.
right? So that's very important.
But is that really like is that a matter of development, or is that just a matter of like maintenance? Because like maybe if it's just not really being applied or used, it just simply like loses mass, or just
well, yes,
like,
and that also makes
or just
yes,
you know,
but that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But you still want to like have a brain that functions as well as possible, so that you don't just degenerate faster. And again, if you just have a better brain at older ages, then you're just able to function better, right?
Yeah.
And so like going back to like speech impediments, for example, I really believe that, you know, since the brain is plastic, that we can change how we are currently wired, so that we just, I guess, not just see things differently, but also just like behave differently and think about the world and interactions differently. And so by really being able to delve into the subconscious, then you can have a different outlook.
Yeah.
So
like, I mean, of course I want to accept that, like I don't want to have a stutter.
Yeah.
Like it's an impediment, so it'd be better if I didn't have it.
Yeah.
And maybe one day, you know, there will definitely be like a cure, because like what we know about, okay, I'll just focus on stuttering because we're on a very like open-ended topic, but I guess from my like experience and just my knowledge about it, we don't really know too much. Like we don't know exactly what causes it. We don't know why it's happening. Like we have some suggestions as to why. So for example, stutterers have atypical auditory, like their auditory cortex is atypical. So like mine is probably different than yours.
Okay.
And then the like 99% of the population. And then, so like for example, there's a thing called delayed auditory feedback, where like if you have headphones in and then you speak, and then about like a few milliseconds later, like 100 or so, maybe 50, it's repeated to you, then a lot of stutterers actually can speak fluently. So there's definitely, like, I think that region is definitely like the culprit.
Yes,
of,
but
like,
see, but like
stuttering.
even that, like that can be influenced by your psychology, right? That again, that can change your brain wiring because of that.
But like I don't know how like the psychology could like rewire like your auditory cortex, right? Because just, you know, as you develop, you know, when the brain is growing, like, because I think, and from what I know, we say like, okay, until 25 the brain is still developing.
Yeah.
It's not that the brain will never change from 25 onwards, it's just that like your regions are really going through all those, like, it's being built really.
Yeah.
Right? And so like with the auditory cortex is, let's say, like built or kind of if it corrodes in a way that is faulty and that leads to something like stuttering, I don't really see how like practice could permanently alter that. I would think, like, if it is the case that like the auditory cortex is a large part or is the main reason why stuttering exists, then maybe like a surgical procedure or something else to actually, like, you know, manually tweak it would be the solution. And then like the psychological parts are mainly overcoming like expectations.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Of
like
course,
if I go into a situation or something and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stutter, I'm gonna have trouble speaking, then most likely I will.
Yes.
And that happens in many other cases. You know, just think about any time where like you might doubt yourself.
Exams.
And go, yeah. So if you go and you write that math 1 through 5 exam.
Goddamn.
Thinking that you're gonna fail, and then
Yeah.
more like it's more likely that you will.
That you will, yes.
So I would say that stuttering is deeply rooted biologically. There's like, and again, I mean, and like, it's not really dismantling your point because you're saying, okay, maybe like that is the case, but then you can still like change the brain through these like processes.
Yes.
But I guess I just don't really see how it could really change it. Like, if it's already developed, then maybe like you could just develop, different tactics to like kind of approach like speaking.
Yes, that's one thing.
And I haven't read that book, but so I don't know exactly like what they said or like what his methods were, or even like how credible it is.
Hey, I read credible books, man.
Oh, it's alright. Yeah, I mean, like I can't like.
Of course, you
can
can judge for yourself. Yes.
But could you just maybe like elaborate on how, or like why you think like those brain regions could like be altered by that behavior, or like what the author said about it?
Yes. So again, the author didn't really delve into any speech impediment issues. It was more about, again, Parkinson's or autism, some epilepsy cases, and it was basically that through a re-education way that these patients somehow they had like their brain rewired, and maybe, as you say, so like we may have some biological factors that cannot be changed, but through psychology or through neurological work, you can kind of build on top of those so that, sure, the underlying structure is there, but subconsciously you're able to just overcome that.
Yeah. And that's mainly, like, that's my view. I don't think, so, because I keep thinking about it in terms of, like, a CPU, right?
Sure.
Like, if you have, like, a computer, if you build a PC,
yes. Yeah.
There is a limit to how much you can compute.
Yes.
You can never really change that unless you actually change the parts.
Yeah. What a true CS student.
So then, like, that's kind of how I see, like, the brain. It's just, like, I mean, again, I mainly just don't really accept the fact that, like, we could we can alter the brain in that way just by, like, practicing or something.
Yes.
So mainly, like, I just see it as, okay, I'm given this brain, I have to deal with the cards that I'm dealt.
Yes.
Now, how do I kind of now approach
of
it
course.
In a way where, like, I accept it, but I don't really doubt myself, and then cause that anxiety, which usually
makes it worse.
Yeah, which usually makes it worse. So, yeah, it's
like, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, even in the book, the scientist, the doctor, like, he's never, like, the patients never go back to, like, being fully normal, right? But they're like this person with autism, you wouldn't be able to tell that she had autism because she would just be able to handle it so well. So yes, in one sense, if you're dealt some cards and you have to accept them, and that's maybe a bit where I have trouble with, because I don't really see, like, a neurological problem as like having an arm cut off. Like, if you have no arm, I can't force you to, like, write with your arm, like, hey, no, you can still do it. Like, no, like, like, that's impossible, right? Yeah. But with something that instead has to do with the brain, then I'm just a bit more skeptical because I really believe, through all the experiences and, like, articles that I read or what other people told me, that you can really change a lot of it. So yes, there may be some underlying structure that you can't change, but I think that, like, a lot can be done on top of that to make it almost like not present or not seeable. Then
in that case, could it be, like, not really actually, like, altering just the brain structures, but it's just, like, the neural pathways that you've developed? Because like that is, to me, I guess, is more plastic than
Yes.
anything else, right?
Yes.
So is that the case? Like it's more so, okay, I mean, to change the way that I think or like approach something, it's not necessarily, okay, I have to like surgically alter my brain or
Sure.
whatever. It's just more so, okay, like when I kind of redefine how like social situations
Affect you.
Yeah, and like how I approach that, how they affect me, just every single way that I interpret it. So, for example, in that case with the girl that had autism,
Yeah.
Do you think that that's more so, okay, she's kind of just like dismantling all these like pathways that she has and then just rebuilding them in a way that's more like conducive to being like
Yes.
socially talented?
Yes, I mean, not only, I mean, again, she started this process when she was 3 or 4, so she definitely like had her brain grow in a different way that diverged from the autistic brain, so that
Yeah.
it wasn't only covering up or like changing the neurological pathways, but it was also actually growing the brain in a better way, in a sense.
Yeah.
But like when you do reach a certain age, yes, your brain isn't growing anymore. It doesn't mean that it's not plastic, but it's not growing. So that does have an effect
and then
still.
if she was so young, like again, the brain is like under so much change at
Yes.
that point.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah.
Like it's I guess coming at it. I mean, like my brain is still developing. I'm still
Yes.
20, but not in the way that
Not
like,
at the same
4-year-old
rate.
is.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And then like for example, people like most people who have a stutter like
Yeah.
when they're young, they typically lose it
Yeah.
by the time they're like 15
Sure.
at the latest
Yes.
because the brain is just undergoing so much change.
Yeah.
So then like in that case again, like she was so young. Like, if it was someone that was like 30 and then they went under some like intense like behavioral therapy
Yeah.
or something and then it was like completely altered it,
Yeah.
how like their like autism, then I might kind of like accept that it would be possible to do that for like, let's say, like me or like a 25-year-old
Yeah.
stutter and like kind of lose it completely. So I'm still kind of under the impression that again, it's just working with what you have and then developing like a good mindset so that
Yes.
you don't have like all that doubt or like that anxiety.
Yes.
So that you can just train yourself and practice to speak in a way, in
Yeah.
my case,
Yes.
that is like fluent.
Yes, they would avoid that. And like, see, so I really do. So I agree with what you're saying, and at the same time, I do really want to stress the fact that through a subconscious training or like just any behavioral training, you can really change how you perceive a situation, and then you won't have this pressure. Because in my opinion, it has a lot to do with pressure, and like I see it with you as well. Like sometimes, like when you were talking about stuttering, initially you were like really stressed about it, and then that's when it really happened, right?
Yeah, and
So-
and that's completely true. Like
Yes.
pressure, like for me and a lot of people, like
Yeah.
definitely makes it worse.
Of course, yeah, for everyone, right? And like even when I had something very similar growing up. It was about just feeling pressure. I always grew up, getting good grades and being good and being, perfect, whatever.
Yeah, brag a little bit, man.
No, I mean,
I'm kidding.
I'm just saying how it was growing up, right? And so, subconsciously, my parents always feel that. And so, subconsciously, myself as well, I always thought, oh yeah, like I always have to perform to make everyone happy, to satisfy everyone's needs. And so eventually, I kind of cracked down because I wasn't able to do it. And like, I was just feeling so much pressure. And then like, I was just not able to say things. And so then I did counseling. My mom convinced me to do counseling. I did it for 2 months. And then I just realized that I'm good the way that I am, that I don't need to fulfill anyone's desires of how I am supposed to be. And that relieved a lot of pressure. And I had one critical point, which I've told you about, that one evening I came back home from counseling and I was really thinking of what my counselor said. And I realized, yes, it doesn't matter what others think. And so I went out to my balcony. We have a third floor apartment in Rome, and that overlooks this like path where people run and jog and bike. And I went out, it was like 6 in the afternoon and like it was full of people. And I looked down and I just yelled. I just yelled so loudly so that I could realize that yes, everyone was looking at me at that moment, but I couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like the moment that made me realize, okay, like it doesn't matter. And sure, I still feel pressure now. And actually, funnily enough, wait, funnily doesn't exist.
Pardon?
Funnily.
Funnily?
It doesn't exist.
Funny enough, I guess.
Funny enough? But
Yeah.
it should be an adverb, no? Because you're describing, like, how funny it is. Anyways, funny enough, when I speak Italian, like, just because of the language, I feel more pressure because this part of my life with all this pressure was when I was speaking in Italian, whereas with English, I don't feel as much pressure, right? So it's funny because like I was talking to my aunt yesterday and like I was just feeling this pressure because I don't feel as confident when I speak Italian. So I believe that so much of this has to do with just the pressure that we've received from the outside, because like that's what has happening, like that's what has been happening for me, and like that's what I find to be so true, and I see that with you as well. I see that with other people, and like again, the speech impediment is just a response of the body to a sort of outside anxiety or like outside pressure.
Well, I would agree, but only in certain cases when it's just purely anxiety based, because again, like there is a lot of research that shows that like there are like neurological aspects to it, and it's also like genetic too. Like it tends to cluster in families.
Yeah,
and it's also if for males are much more
prone to that.
Yeah, prone to having a stutter. So it's like many people when they get nervous, they tend to have trouble talking, right?
Of course,
so,
that's with
like,
everyone.
And then again, like it makes sense in that case. Like if you can overcome that like pressure or like that anxiety, then like you wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah.
But if your brain is like just malfunctioning, like there's no way that you can completely control that. So like I think that applying that to like my situation would help me probably like 90% of the time, but there will still be like that 10%. Where there's
cases
that I will have like 10% of words I will like stutter on or something.
Sure.
But it isn't that bad. But
yeah, well, it's like 10%, of course. Yeah.
Like there are definitely people that have it way worse than I do.
Definitely. It's a spectrum, right?
That, like,
yeah.
It's but so like I think there will always be if it's the case that like the brain it's certain parts of it are like causing your stuttering, then you probably will never lose it completely, but there's always a lot of potential to like overcome a lot of the anxiety, which usually makes the stutter worse or causes it in many cases. So
yeah, I agree. So I think that we both agree on the fact that there is a like underlying structure in the brain, right, that makes people more prone to this. And that at the same time, though, sure, some people may have this different brain wiring, but with say counseling or like with some training or just like having a different outlook of what is perceived as pressure or anxiety, that we can really improve this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and like that's why like speech therapy exists. It definitely builds you up.
Yeah,
it gives you that confidence. It gives you techniques to speak, because like for example, when I speak, I'm kind of always traversing
some words, or like
because like I kind of feel okay. I'm gonna I can kind of like sense a block or like coming up. It's like
but
really
how
hard.
can that not be psychological,
and
right?
That maybe it is completely like psychological when I can sense it.
Yes.
And I haven't been able to overcome that. It's just so like deeply rooted in.
Yeah, of course.
It's like how I think, but
yeah.
I'm always kind of like carefully choosing it, and that's something that I will learn, but also like I saw a speech therapist for a brief amount of time, so yeah, she kind of was like telling me about that as well.
Of course.
But there are definitely ways to practice, but I'm still of the viewpoint that like there is just a certain amount that you can never control. It's just how your brain is wired.
Yes.
And by wired, I mean how its cortices and like everything is like how it is structured.
Yes. Yeah. And I agree with that, even though for me it's hard to accept sometimes that some things are just how they are and they can't fully be changed. But as long as we put the effort in to do as much as we can, then I think that that's what matters the most in the end. So, yeah, I think that that's where we stand on this.
Yeah.
And we'll train more subconscious mind to view things differently.
That's right.
Yes. All right, guys. So that was it for us. Let us know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe if you like this. See, I'm not like, why do people have to say to subscribe? Like, I'm sure, like me as a listener or as a viewer, even if no one tells me to subscribe, if I like the content, then I still do it, right?
When people are reminded, then you typically get a higher like rate of like subscriptions or like. So that's why so many channels are like at the beginning, man, like the video, and then like midway through they have that little icon at the top, like
really
like it.
And
at the end, it's like, guys, if you liked it, smack that like button, because then it's just kind of, it's like selling yourself. You're like, oh yeah, you know what, maybe I should.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so subscribe.
subscribe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the whole thing. Okay, guys, so we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. And if you have any suggestions, or if you want to come on the podcast, or if you have anything that you would like us to talk about, let us know. And we'll see you next time. See you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.